Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and yes, I am actually alive. Just quick thing before I get going, basically this channel, I know I haven't uploaded in a long time. The reason for this is that my YouTube channel is mainly a venting place. It's more of a thing that I just put my opinions on. You know, something annoys me or something just, I have an intrusive thought, I sort of rant about it, goes off my mind, and I stick it on the YouTube. I have tried doing a few other videos. I've got like a 2-hour recording of me ranting about armored infantry fighting vehicles. It's about as coherent as you'd expect, since it has no script or any planning along with it. So it's just something I'm not going to upload, unfortunately. Now, I will be doing more content, obviously, but like just saying, this channel doesn't have regular uploads. I don't have a schedule, and I'm doing university, so it makes things a little bit harder. So yeah, this is going to be my first ever reaction video. If you guys like it, leave a like, subscribe, give me a comment. I mean, this is a topic where feedback is always welcome. It's a thing that I like learning about. You know, I like hearing other opinions that are, you know, actual opinions and not just calling me a moron for the sake of calling me a moron. But yes, that's really it for the intro. Again, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, tell me what you think. It's really appreciated, and I will get on with this video.
Let's bring in the foreign editor for the Australian, Greg Sheridan. There's so much happening at the moment. It's unbelievable. Greg, welcome. I read your front page story in the Australian today. You reckon Labor finally got one of these defence purchases right by locking in the Japanese frigate deal? I mean, about time, yes?
Oh, absolutely. Steve, great to be with you. So this is a good decision, but of course it could have been made 2 or 3 years ago. There's no reason for the absurd delay. But they finally decided to buy a modern warship. It's not a huge ship. We should be getting more powerful destroyers, you know, like the Arleigh Burkes with 100 vertical launch cells. But this is pretty good. This is a very modern, stealthy Mogami.
Now, for those of you that have read a bit of Greg Sheridan's work or have just looked at stuff he says, you would notice that he is a big proponent for Australia buying the Arleigh Burke. However, there's about 4 main reasons why I believe that it's just not going to happen, and to be honest, it's kind of ridiculous to ask for it. Point number 1, it's not for sale, and there's no evidence that America would actually sell it to us in the first place. And really, all he's got is some wishful thinking going, oh, America will give us the ship because we're best buds, which is not how America works. I'm sorry to say this. America's not going to separate with military capability for love or money if it leaves them weaker. The reality is, right now, that the Arleigh Burke has no replacement, and they're not building more of them. And this is at a time when America's Navy is undersized. It doesn't have the capability that they really want, or that they're actually wanting to expand it and increase its capability by a pretty large margin. Selling off their only destroyer class, and pretty much their only main class of warship that's existent in any serious numbers that provides any serious capability, it's not a good idea for them. And that weakens them quite a lot. This is part of the issue that we have right now with AUKUS, is that realistically, they just can't sell us warships. They just can't sell us these submarines because they don't have a replacement. They're not building them at a fast enough rate to make up for the ships that they would be giving us. So to give us these ships, they'd be trading off a lot of operational capability. Additionally, the Arleigh Burke requires 303 personnel to operate. Now, for those of you that are astutely aware, we've had a bit of an issue with the Anzac class, which requires about half that crew. And if those of you that, you know, have read, I don't know, the news in the last 4 or 5 years, the reality is that the Arleigh Burke is double the size or double the required crew of the Anzac class, which we've had to retire early because we don't have enough personnel. In fact, when Pat Conroy, the Minister for Defence Industries, was actually talked to about this on Sky News in an early interview, he was saying this is one of the reasons why we chose the Mogami, because it has a smaller crew and it has more technological edge. Additionally, the Arleigh Burke costs about $2.5 to $2.6 billion per ship, which is a lot of money for a ship that is starting to reach the end of its lifespan. And that's the big problem. Things like the Arleigh Burke are heavily upgraded, and when you look at the different flights, you start to notice the massive changes that they carry out. For instance, they've greatly expanded the actual size of the ship. In fact, some of the upgrades they've carried out in recent years actually completely restructure the ship's superstructure itself, which is a very big upgrade that we may not be able to afford, and we may not have the know-how or capability to do here in Australia. Additionally, we don't know how long it'll be before these ships need another complete redo or an overhaul of the systems. So this means that we could buy these $2.6 billion warships, put them into our navy, and then in 5 years' time need to completely strip them bare and do another $2 billion upgrade for each vessel. Whereas the Mogami class is expected, with its baseline performance and capability, to last us at least 30 to 40 years. Surely, and hopefully you can all see the problem here. It's just not going to work.
Japanese frigate. It's got 32 vertical launch cells, as many as our Hunter frigates are going to have. We're going to get the first 3 of them built in Japan, which means there's a good chance they'll come in on schedule and on price. We're going to get 3 of them for under $10 billion, whereas our ludicrous Hunter frigates are going to cost $9 billion each and take longer to construct than a nuclear submarine. So we'll get the first one before the end of the decade, assuming we don't bugger them up by putting, sort of special bespoke platypus radars on them or something like this. Assuming the government can keep the defence organisation away from them and just let the Japanese manufacture them, we will at last get some modern platforms. Now, it's way too little, it's way too late, but even a blind pig finds an acorn occasionally, so well done to the government. They've done something.
Hello, it's me again. Now this is a thing that I'm not really a big fan of. This is sort of a bit of a disingenuous argument, making it out that it's actually going to be Albanese that ruins the Mogami class. I'm just going to say this now. Pat Conroy, in his interview, stated that they will only make 2 changes. 1, the change will be that they will make the interface and the systems in English, not Japanese, which is completely fair. And basically what this is effectively just putting English stickers where there are Japanese stickers and, setting the computers to being in English. It's not that big of a change. Additionally, it's basically just got to meet minimum standards within Australian maritime safety law. Now, that is really not big of a change at all, because as long as the ships basically do the things it has to do, it should meet all the standards. It should be able to work pretty well for our Navy. This is a bit of, and I'm going to just say also, this is sort of referring to the Hunter class, which I just think some people don't remember as well, that this was under Scott Morrison. And I would hope, and I'm saying this, I hope, I'm not going to say Albanese can't screw it up, because, Australian politics has been great in the last 30 years. We managed to mess up every military procurement we've ever had. But the reality is that I'm not sure that Albanese would actually mess this up. You can criticise him for the issues with AUKUS, but 90% of that is, well, quite frankly, that we tried to buy a ship, and as I was saying before in my last interjection, we were trying to buy a ship that America does not have the ability to send to Australia right now and give to us, even for money. They don't have enough of these ships, and they're not procuring enough to actually make up for these ships being sent. But yeah, just my 2 cents worth.
They've done something right eventually.
It does make you wonder, though, what would have happened if Tony Abbott hadn't lost the Prime Ministership to Malcolm Turnbull and we had gone down the Abbott track, dealt with the Japanese on submarines, and I think I heard you say somewhere the other day that we'd probably had the first one of them in the water by now.
Yeah, it was always planned that we'd get those subs beginning in the mid-2020s. The Japanese make brilliant conventional submarines. They were making the Soyuz then. I think their new class is called the Taegus or some such. We would certainly have upgraded with the Japanese. They'd be great conventional subs, and assuming we didn't over-design them insanely, they would have been delivering the first ones now. And if we'd allowed the first few to be built in Japan while we trained up a workforce, we could have built the last few in Australia. If we're going to get 12, if we got 3 or 4 built in Japan and then the rest built in Australia, after we had a workforce and knew how to do it, that would have been the way to go, and we would have had a very capable fleet of conventional submarines, and maybe we'd go nuclear after that. But at the moment, we're headed to have no submarines at all, And of course, the other thing is, Abbott had this vision of strategic alignment and intimate engagement between Japan and Australia as part of a three-way Japan, Australia, United States military
Now, this is
arrangement.
A bit of revisionist history, really. It's pretty much completely unbased, and there's no evidence really says that Tony Abbott would have actually made a better decision. The reality is that under Abbott, there was no decision to buy the Japanese submarines. And under Malcolm Turnbull, there was the decision to effectively put in for the short fin Barracuda class submarine, which is effectively just a non-nuclear French submarine, as you can probably assume. Now, the big problem here, and what annoys me with this, is it is the typical stuff that we see, and I'm just going to sort of go on a bit of a rant in a minute, but it's the typical stuff we see from military and political commentators all the time, is this whole, oh, well, your side messed up, or, oh, but this guy would have done it so much better. To which I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say, I don't care, really. It's completely inconsequential and it's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter if this guy would have done better. It doesn't matter if one guy would have been better if he wasn't. Tony Abbott didn't make any serious changes to defense. He's part of the problem. He didn't fix the issues that we had. Again, he's part of the problem. And this is the whole reason why I'm really not a fan of this whole attitude, particularly when it comes to the defense side of things, where it's a political problem. Because people try and blame the other side just as much, missing the point that they're just as bad. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of this video, is because it's basically sitting down trying to blame Albanese for half these issues, and somehow making out to be that he was some terrible person for defense, whilst not really making any serious changes beyond cleaning up problems that we have. I mean, if you look at the big criticisms, what is it? Cutting infantry fighting vehicles. Okay, well, what are we going to do with 450 IFVs? We can't deploy them overseas. We don't have enough assets. We don't have the manpower to operate them all. And we have no means to deploy serious numbers anywhere. And finally, if an adversary force was landing anywhere in Australia, they'd be able to field more infantry fighting vehicles and weapons than we would anyway. And by the time we react, they'd be heavily dug in and have positions that are easily defensible. So what's the point of having 450 IFVs when we can only deploy maybe 150 or so in the first place? The whole point I'm trying to get at here is it's really hard for me to sit down and listen to what I frankly find is stupidity. And this is one of the things that annoys me as a person who does actually take myself somewhat seriously, as my entire university degree that I'm undergoing is political science and international relations, majoring in security, terrorism, and human rights. The reality is that this argument is irrelevant, because when you sit down and you look at these problems, or these so-called issues that have been invented, let's just quickly hang on for a second. So Albanese's bought our first multiple rocket launch system in our entire military history. We should have had these 20 years ago. We should have had some multiple rocket launch system 20 years ago. But we didn't. It's only just taken Ukraine to get one of these. Under Albanese, we seem to be moving forwards with an air defense program that should have been delivered under Scott Morrison. Under Albanese, they've cut the disastrous Hunter-class frigate, which was completely destroyed by the Morrison government's ineptitude and incapacity to actually just let a frigate class be, and instead of turning it into a actually dangerous lethal warship, take more time to build than a nuclear submarine. And under Albanese, they've made a decision to buy the Japanese warships here. Now, you will hear a lot of criticism, but here's the thing. My criticism for Albanese is that he's not moving fast enough. He's not making decisions quickly enough, and he is not the one really at the head or the wheel. And of course, the problem is we are risking alienating our American allies with his lack of guarantee to support America when we have no other alternatives. Additionally, there's this really closed-minded attitude towards weapons such as, and I am a proponent for nuclear weapons, because, as we've seen in Ukraine, those are the only things that guarantee your safety in the modern day. That's all that guarantees your safety. And that's the brutal reality. And what we have seen and what we're putting up with is this political game playing. And this is why I don't like Sky News, is because, for instance, when AUKUS was immediately dropped, this half-baked fruit at the on Sky News basically went, oh, well, Albanese hasn't bought a single drone, and then immediately started complaining about Albanese buying a drone. Where's the logic? And what I'm trying to say here is, whilst I'm not going to try and I'm not going to say Albanese is perfect, he's not the messiah for our military, he seems to be fixing things up a lot more than all the previous governments for the last 30 years. And under Albanese, we seem to be having, finally, a pretty reasonable defense strategy that isn't designed by idiots with no idea. And it's following Hugh White's book, How to Defend Australia, with a lot of the policy and the realities on the ground, which is all stuff Hugh White writes about. And this is where I'm going to bring up this big point. Hugh White, for instance, makes the really good argument that we aren't going to be able to defend Australia if an adversary were to invade. It's just too big. And the reality is that we're just too distant to really justify deploying a large-scale invasion force. So by the time we have to deal with something like that, we might as well just focus on area access / denial, or A2AD. We should focus on shutting down sea lanes. We should be shutting down enemy access to our own territory and our airspace and our sea. That's what we should be doing. And I have repeated this attitude in many videos where I've said a few times that it's a lot harder. It's really hard to hold a naval assault when your fuel supply ship is a burning wreck. It's very hard to do a land deployment or land attack when your soldiers have all drowned 500 kilometers offshore because the Australians just hit it with a spicy torpedo. What I'm trying to say is, I am not a big fan of this ideology that somehow Albanese is uniquely bad, or that somehow this is a problem unique to Labor. This is a problem that all governments for the last 30 years have had, and realistically, I'm just sort of tired of hearing it. This is why I did this video in the first place, basically just rant about this, because I am very, very sick and tired of people politicizing defense when everyone's been shit. That's the brutal reality. And we got all these people sitting around laughing, going, oh, I'm less shit than you. And it's like, well, you haven't done anything. You don't get to brag until you actually fix our problems. And that's it. That's my perspective. That's all I've got to say. Thank you all very, very much for watching, unless you want me to rant for another 5 hours. And I hope you all enjoyed. Again, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And again, thank you all very, very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.